So you have a cheaper entry-level DSLR and have finally reached the point where this thing is actually the limiting factor in your videos and you're ready to just toss it? Well, I spent the last couple months testing out the latest cameras to help figure out which one is the best upgrade for your videos. That thing's okay, right?
Define okay.
Hey everyone, Camber here, showing you how to use your camera to make good videos. And if you're a beginner looking for your first camera, then this is not the video for you. Instead, check out this video here on the best cameras for beginner filmmakers in 2021. Now, with that said, and before we get started, I want you to understand my assumptions of you for these camera recommendations. The first assumption is that you are already using the camera that you have right now to make money, because these cameras are expensive. But in buying one, you're making an investment in your business that will improve your video quality and allow you to charge even more money for your work. The second assumption is that you already know about things like aperture, shutter speed, resolution, frame rates, and so on for filmmaking, because I'm not really going to cover any of that in this video, but I will go into a bit more depth on some of the technical aspects of the cameras to help explain my reasons for why you should get one. And the last assumption is that you understand that getting a more expensive camera will not automatically make your videos better, and that you can actually make a cheaper camera's video look great with the right lighting, framing, and so on, which you've probably already been doing if you're making money with a lower end camera. But investing in one of these cameras will just help you to build upon the skills you already have with better video quality, as well as some convenient video features that will help with your workflow. Now, these cameras are in the $3,000 to $4,000 range, but I will cover a couple less expensive alternatives that will still be a big improvement over your entry-level cameras if you aren't quite ready to invest that much money in your business yet. I'll have timestamps in the description for those if you want to jump ahead to that, as well as links for all the cameras I'm talking about for the best prices that I could find. And with that, let's look at these cameras. After a lot of testing, my favorites are the Canon R5 for $3,900 and the Sony a7S III for $3,500. And you may ask, what about the new Sony A1, because it has 8K just like the R5? The 8K on the R5 is a gimmick just so that Canon could say they were the first ones to do it. Everyone knows it has overheating problems, and I'm not even taking 8K into consideration with these camera recommendations. Plus, the A1 is nearly twice the price of the a7S III with almost all the same video options, plus the highly compressed 8K video, and it doesn't even have a flip-out touchscreen. But anyways, both cameras have a 5-axis stabilized full-frame sensor, giving you better low-light performance and a shallower depth of field than an APS-C or Micro Four Thirds sensor would. Both have fully articulating touchscreens that allow you to use touch autofocus and tracking, and just about every button on these cameras is customizable. You have the option of C-Log on the R5 and many different picture profiles with S-Log on the a7S III that will improve your color grading workflow and options. And to make that even better, you can record 4K up to 120 frames per second in 10-bit 422 on either of these cameras, giving you much better color depth and sampling. Now, if you don't fully understand what bit depth or color sampling is and why that's helpful for your videos, then I do have a couple more videos linked below explaining why those features will improve your editing workflow and final video quality. But I must say that the image quality on both these cameras when I used them was fantastic, and I know that I could take either one out on a shoot and come back with great footage. But there are some considerations with the different features of these cameras that I'm going to cover now that you need to take into account when deciding which one to choose. As is well known, the R5 will eventually overheat depending on the mode you are shooting in, whereas the a7S III has never overheated for me. I shot 4K at 24 frames per second on the R5 in 70 degrees Fahrenheit for an hour and a half with no overheating issues, so that's more than enough time for me to shoot something like a wedding ceremony. Granted, if it was an outdoor ceremony in the summertime, then that would probably be a different story. However, it did start to overheat for me at 4K 60 after about 45 minutes, but I'm usually only using 60 for short slow motion clips, so if you're shooting that long at 60 frames per second, I'm not quite sure what you're trying to achieve. But the Canon R5 with its 45 megapixel sensor gives you really high bitrate options up to nearly 2000 megabits per second when shooting 4K, which is going to retain a lot of information, giving you great video quality. But with that comes the necessity for very expensive memory cards and hard drive space for your footage. The A7S III, on the other hand, with its 12 megapixel sensor, gives you a lower bitrate of up to 600 megabits per second in 4K, which still gives excellent video quality, but doesn't require nearly the amount of storage space or high performance memory cards. And because the sensor has nearly a fourth the number of pixels that the R5 does, but on the same size sensor, each of those pixels is able to take in a lot more light and provide you with ridiculously good low light performance. The A7S III also has no video recording limit, whereas the R5 has the typical 30-minute video limit, which can be even lower depending on the recording mode that you're using. And that's a quick rundown of what to expect from these cameras, so let me know down in the comments which one is more appealing to you and why. But I personally chose the A7S III because of the lower price tag, the low light awesomeness, the smaller file sizes, and the unlimited duration recording, coupled with the fact that it never overheats. And I'm actually shooting this video with it right now. And I also have a video on my favorite camera lens that I use for about 90% of my videos that I'll link down in the description if you're interested in that. But as I said before, if you're not quite ready to spend over $3,000 on a new camera, there are a couple other cameras that I tested that are about half the price and will still be good upgrade options that produce great results. And these alternatives are the Canon EOS R and the Sony A7C, which are both priced at $1,800. And you may ask, well, what about the Canon R6? It's not bad, but I feel like for $2,500, they should have added some all-eye recording options rather than only IPB. Now, if you have no clue what I'm talking about, then here's another video I made about video compression modes that'll explain how this affects your video quality. But anyways, both of these cameras have full-frame sensors, but only the A7C has 5-axis stabilization. Both cameras offer fully articulating touchscreens that give you the ability to use touch autofocus and tracking. The EOS R maxes out at 60 frames per second in Full HD, and the A7C will give you up to 120 frames per second in Full HD. Both cameras can shoot 4K at 24 frames per second, but the EOS R has a crop of 1.8 when shooting 4K, which will almost double the focal length of your lens, whereas the A7C uses a 6K to 4K downsampling to get a full readout of the sensor for 4K. The A7C will give you unlimited duration recording, whereas the EOS R has the typical 30-minute video limit. I don't like that the A7C has a tiny viewfinder that's pretty much useless for photos, so you'll need to stick with the rear monitor for that. But it basically has all the same video modes as the A7 III, which I used for years, with the added bonus of unlimited recording and a fully articulating screen. And after spending some time with these cameras, I do prefer the Sony model despite the terrible viewfinder, due to the fact that there is no crop in 4K, it can shoot up to 120 frames per second in Full HD, and there are no video recording limits. But both cameras have HDMI inputs that will allow you to upgrade your video quality by recording to an external recorder, giving you 10-bit 422 on the EOS R and 8-bit 422 on the A7C. But as I said in the beginning, you should already know how to make your videos look great with the camera that you have before upgrading to a new camera. And if you are just starting out and you have a larger budget to spend, do not think that buying one of these higher-end cameras will automatically make your videos look good, because the camera is just a tool in the filmmaking process, and it's learning how to use that camera well to tell a story that will really set your films apart. But if this video is helpful, then please help me out by leaving a like, subscribe if you haven't, leave comments with any questions, I'll clarify what I can down below, and I will see you in the next one.